Good evening, councillors and officers and members of the public. Welcome to this evening's planning committee. I will just run through some housekeeping rules. Should the fire alarm sound, please follow the lead of our officers and exit the building on their instruction and congregate where indicated at the front of the building, so we can make sure that everybody is accounted for. Do not use the lifts, please. Please ensure that mobile phones are either set to silent or switched off for the duration of this meeting. The meeting is being recorded and you may be visible on camera. So if this is an issue please let one of the officers present know of your concern. For those sitting in the public gallery, can you please avoid leaning on the glass panelling for your own safety? Protocol for the meeting. I will now run through the protocol for the member and the public participation and the rules of debate. Please note that the Chair's ruling during the debate will be final. The planning officer will introduce the item relating to the planning application and summarise the main points. When the introduction has been completed, I will then invite members of the public who have registered to speak on the item to address the meeting. If you have registered to speak, I will introduce you by name and invite you to step forward. Please use the microphone. You have 3 minutes and I will ask to be stopped once your time has expired. Members of the committee will then be given the opportunity to ask questions or to clarify statements. The item will then be moved and seconded and debated before a vote is taken. We will now move on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absences.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Ashall, who is not present as a committee member, and we have Councillor Cavetta here as his substitute. Councillor Ben Williams has also sent his apologies. Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item 2, minutes of the meeting of 11th June 2025. You have the minutes from 11th June in your pack. Do I have a proposer and a seconder, please, for the adoption thereof? Thank you very much. I will sign the minutes. Cheers. Thank you very much. Can I have a show of hands, please? Right, okay, thank you very much. Item 3, members' declarations. Members, can I ask you to confirm that you are coming to the meeting with an open mind and that you're not predetermined on any of the applications? Okay.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. On agenda item 6, I fear that I am in fact predetermined. As you're aware, with your indulgence, Chair, I will be addressing the meeting and then I will leave for chamber for the duration of the debate after I've spoken. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Can I ask if anyone has visited any of the sites listed on the agenda tonight? Thank you, David.
Agenda item 6.
Finally, does anyone have a declaration that you wish to make, please? If you state the item or the nature, please. Okay, thank you, members. For information purposes, I have decided to reorder the agenda items, and the first item we are hearing today will be application NE-22-00698-OUT, land adjacent to Haldens, Parkway, Thrapston. And obviously, Councillor David Brackenbury has already declared his interest on this and will be speaking on the item as a ward councillor and not take part in the decision-making process. Right, I will hand over to Charles Judson to present the report, please. Could you...
Councillor Brackenbury, I think now would be the time to leave the chamber for this item.
If you could, David.
So long as I'm invited back to speak.
I'll invite you back, David. No
Thank you,
problem.
Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors. Before I present the proposals, there are a few updates for members today. If I could draw your attention to the committee update report dated the 9th of July 2025. There is a number of updates within here, and I also have some verbal updates for you today. So dealing first with the issue of the habitats regulations assessment, you'll see from the update report that a HRA was produced by Place Services, and that concludes that the proposed mitigation would be sufficient to avoid any adverse impacts. The update report confirms that that has been issued to Natural England for comment, and I am able to confirm that Natural England have come back today and confirmed that they have no objections subject to the conclusions of that HRA and appropriate assessment. In terms of additional representations received, as per the update report, we have received an additional representation from Staunch with respect to the HRA. There are a number of corrections and alterations to the published report as set out in the update report. A majority of those are in respect of corrections to typographical errors and matters of clarification and correction, and I won't go through those in detail. They're there for you to read in the updated report. There are also some proposed amendments to conditions. A number of those amendments are in relation to revision numbers in the drawings list and points of clarification. Condition 4 is amended to refer what installation relates to, and there have been the insertion of some reasons for conditions. There is the proposed new condition 26A as per the update report, which is for a Skylark compensation strategy, and we have also been advised by the ecologist advisors today that there is a need for a further condition with regards to backlighting design strategy, and that will be reflected in the officer's recommendation. There are a number of additional informatives proposed, one in respect of highway matters and one in respect of the scheduled monument. They are as per the update report. And I also have a number of amendments to the heads of terms as set out in Appendix 1 of the officer's report. There is a further amendment to those heads of terms, and that is to remove option 2 from the functionally linked land heads of terms, which relates to the payment of a financial contribution in the event that a strategic solution becomes available. So we were just left with option 1 as a heads of term for the functionally linked land. Also some minor changes to the wording of the scheduled monument heads of term as per the report, and then some clarifications regarding plot 4 innovation centres, public transport improvements and biodiversity to specify the amount of minimum biodiversity net gain that is to be achieved. So I believe that deals with all of the updates, and I will move to the presentation. So, planning application NE 22006980 or OUT is a hybrid planning application. It comprises of an application for full planning permission for the construction of a storage and distribution unit on plot 1, which will be within use class B8 with ancillary offices in use class E. The creation of a principal estate road, including bus stop, with new access from the A605. Construction of an emergency access onto Islington, highway improvements to Huntingdon Road and the A605 roundabout and at junction 13 of the A14. It also proposes strategic green infrastructure, vehicle and cycle parking, pedestrian infrastructure, hard standing, circulation areas, lighting infrastructure and all other ancillary, enabling and associated works, including landscaping, drainage, earthwork, substation and boundary treatments. The outline elements of the application are with all matters reserved for an employment park comprising of B2, B8 and E uses with ancillary offices, the creation of a new access from Arundel Road, vehicular and cycle parking, pedestrian infrastructure, hard standing, circulation areas, lighting infrastructure and all other ancillary, enabling and associated works including landscaping, drainage, earthworks and boundary treatment. The application site is denoted by the red line on this slide and measures 60.05 hectares in area. The site is split into two. So we have a northern parcel up here, which is located to the north of the existing Haldens Parkway employment area. So within this area is the proposed new employment park. This part of the site straddles the A605 with a majority of it to the east and a smaller proportion to the west. And then we have a southern part of the site, which includes the junctions between the A14 and A605, junction 13, and the junction between the A605 and the Huntington Road, just slightly further north. And these are included within the application site on the basis that highways works are proposed at both of those roundabouts. You will also note that there are areas of blue land identified on this plan, within which area biodiversity and community enhancements are proposed on 15.46 hectares of land. Just to illustrate the site a bit more graphically and contextually, we've got some aerial photography here. So the site, and I think you can see my marker there. Sorry, it's a bit juddery, but the site is in this location here, obviously with the roundabouts to the south, and it extends slightly further north up the A605. To the south of the site is the existing employment area. You have Islington to the east, the village of Titchmarsh to the northeast. Of note is the proximity of the River Nen and the associated SPA, which is the Nen Valley Gravel Pit Special Protection Area and Ramsar site, which support golden plover and lapwing. You'll also note the proximity of the site to the built-up area of Thrapston and then the A14 further to the south. This was a plan submitted with the application and just provides a bit more contextual detail. So you'll note the size and scale of the existing buildings to the south of the site, an area of expansion of that existing business park, the application site to the north. The purple areas are employment areas, the orange is broadly residential and such like, and then the green is kind of structural landscape which is existing, and just off to the northeast you can see the SPA and the River Nem. And we've just got a few slides here of the application site. It's agricultural land, rural in character, boundaries that are generally defined by hedgerows and trees. There are public rights of way which run through the site, and it is on undulating land. This is taken from the northeast of the site, looking towards the west across the application site. And this is, we move further south down Islington, so again looking southwest across the site back towards Thrapston, and you can probably just make out the business park in the distance. And then this is looking from the Thrapston Auction Centre, which is to the south of the site, so looking across the site in the middle distance, and then obviously the wider landscape beyond. From the other side of the site, this is taken from the A605. You can just make out, apologies, my cursor's moved a bit too quick there. You can just make out the existing A605 Oundle Road roundabout just behind this lorry here. So this is the application site in front of us, and then you've got the existing employment area beyond. So you can just make out the buildings there, and you'll note the change in levels of the site. And then this is what's referred to as plot 4. So the main part of the application site is beyond this tree line, and that's the line of the A605, and then plot 4, and then the Oundle Road from which access will be taken to plot 4. As I mentioned, the application is a hybrid proposal. This drawing was submitted by the applicant in support of the application and shows the extent of the full and outline aspects of the proposal. So those areas highlighted in pink hatching are the areas for which full planning permission is sought, and this includes plot 1, which is this area over here to the east of the site, And then the principal estate road and the site access. So site access will come in from a new roundabout. The estate road would then head through the site and then run along the northern border to the emergency access at this point. And then the areas hatched green are those areas where outline planning permission is sought. That includes space for what are termed plots 2, 3A, 3B to the east of the A605 and plot 4 to the west of the A605. And plot 4 is proposed to deliver innovation units and plots 2 and 3 for larger scale B2 and B8 uses. So the application proposes a parameter approach to the outline parts of the application, which will control the extent of development within each plot. It defines the developable area, the maximum floor space, the uses, and the maximum external area for each plot. Also proposed as part of the parameters are maximum haunch and ridge heights, the highest being plot 2, which has a haunch height of 21 metres and a ridge height of 24 metres. And then these parameters have been translated into an indicative master plan, which show how the scheme could be developed within the constraints of those parameters. Within this master plan, we can see the extent of the developable area, and then you can make out clearly the proposed roundabout and then the estate access road. So they're the full elements up to plot 1, as well as plots 2, 3A, 3B, and 4. We can also see that there is an area of buffer to the northwest here. That's the location of a scheduled monument. So the scheduled monument is the yellowy orange hatching, and then the buffer to that is the green hatching. And then there are areas of landscaping, sustainable drainage, circulation space, parking, and all other such infrastructure associated with such development. I mentioned the levels when we were looking at the photographs, and this slide, and apologies, it's not necessarily easy to make out the detail, but it's a section through the site with Islington to the left-hand side as we look at it. The site then slopes down approximately 5 metres, and then we get a series of level plateaus where the development plots would be developed. So it levels out and then again cut into the site, levels out, and then a further drop, and it levels out. Here we have the A605, and then we have plot 4 over to the right-hand side. So that just gives a graphical demonstration of the sections through the site. And then that indicative master plan is then translated into this CGI. So we have the A605 realigned with the new access roundabout into the site, plot 4 with its access onto Oundle Road, and then the scheduled monument, in this location here, and then the delivery of plots 3, 2, and 1 in the distance, and then Islington Road marking Islington marking the boundary of the site in the far distance there, and then the existing business park in this location here. So I mentioned that the Unit 1 was in full. As a result, we have detailed elevational details and floor plans submitted for approval. These are the elevations that have been amended through the course of the application to change the external appearance as a result of some landscape comments. And the building has a parapet height of 18.7 metres above ground level. And you'll see that there's a 2-storey wing, and this is the associated offices in a darker grey here. And again, just the flip of the elevations there. And this is the proposed floor plan. Large warehouse, the ability for lorries to pull up, and then the associated offices with a wing here, and then further office space in these locations as kind of office hubs to the building. One here and one up here. And then this is just that office wing, so laid out as you would expect for such a use. The proposal seeks to incorporate a range of soft landscaping, which is shown here on the proposed landscaping strategy drawing. It incorporates trees, hedgerows, woodland, scrub, grassland and other such planting to provide visual mitigation and enhancement, with a particular focus on the kind of peripheries of the site, so the northern, the eastern and the southern boundaries, as well as the area adjacent to the scheduled monument and adjacent to the A605. Detailed landscape plans have been provided for the full application. And what we see here is an extract from a document submitted by the applicant. They are proposing an acoustic fence. If I just flip back to the previous slide, owing to the proximity of residential dwellings in this location, you'll be able to make out a proposed acoustic fence to be sited adjacent to the proposed roundabout. And here we see a section through, so you have the houses, existing trees. This is the existing alignment of the A605. We then have the proposed 4 metre high acoustic fence, which will be planted with various climbers and such like. And then we have the new alignment of the A605 and the roundabout. Also proposed, as I mentioned in the blue land, is off-site biodiversity and community enhancements. So these areas of blue land will be used to deliver biodiversity net gain through the creation of meadows, parklands, hedgerows and woodland. And within these areas, permissive paths, which are the blue dotted lines, would be provided to extend that public rights of the way network, which is in existence, identified by the pink dotted line. And then I've got a series of slides here which are relating to the access and highways. So this slide shows the proposed roundabout access off the A605 into the site. So A605 is realigned. You can see in light grey the existing alignment. So it moves into the site, offline roundabout with 3 arms. The eastern arm serving the application site. And then also proposed are works to the A605 Huntington Road roundabout and the A14 A605 Junction 13. These changes take the form of carriageway widening, white lining, and general changes to the kind of circulation on the roundabout and lane alignment. And then this is the proposed change to the northern roundabout with Arundel Road. Again, similar changes with some changes to alignment, white lining, widening, that nature of works. So I've landed back on the CGI. We'll now turn to the assessment of the application. The development plan is made up of the Northamptonshire Core Strategy, which was adopted in 2016, and the East Northamptonshire Local Plan Part 2, which was adopted in 2023. Key policies in the determination of this application include policies 11, 23 and 24 of the Core Strategy, which relate respectively to the network of the urban and rural areas, the location of new jobs and logistics. In addition, policy EN17 of the East Northamptonshire Local Plan is of relevance in relation to the relocation and expansion of existing businesses. Also of relevance is the MPPF as a material consideration. Turning first to policy 11 of the core strategy, that sets out a spatial strategy and the role of the urban and rural areas, and makes a distinction between the role of growth towns and market towns in North Northants. The policy states that the growth towns will be the focus of major scale development and identifies the role of market towns as providing growth in homes and jobs to support regeneration and local services at a scale appropriate to the character and infrastructure of the town. Thrapston is identified as a market town as opposed to a growth town. Policy 23 identifies job growth targets for the 4 sub-areas of North Northamptonshire, and it acknowledges a shortfall in supply and that additional sites will be needed in Part 2 of the plan, with priority given to sites in growth town locations. And Policy 24 specifically relates to logistics and supports proposals for logistics, including large-scale strategic distribution, where these comply with the spatial strategy, facilitate provision of smaller units, have good access to the strategic road network and local labour supply, achieve high design and environmental standards. EN 17 allows for the expansion of existing businesses owing to the site's location adjacent to the built-up area and Haldens Parkway employment area. It's considered that the proposals would in principle comply with policy EN 17, with an existing occupier of Haldens Parkway proposed to take occupation of plot 1 as an expansion of their existing operations. However, the proposals are not considered to be in direct accordance with policies 11 or 24 of the core strategy, and therefore the proposal conflicts with the spatial strategy owing to the scale of development in a market town location. As such, officers consider that there is a degree of policy conflict, and the officers consider that the proposals conflict with the development plan as a whole on this basis. However, the latest iteration of the MPPF, particularly at paragraphs 85 to 87, provides stronger emphasis on the key planning policies in the framework in relation to the determination of proposals, which will contribute towards the meeting the needs of the logistics sector. Where there is evidence of this not being the case, i.e. where the needs of operators are not being adequately provided for, either in quantitative or qualitative terms, the local planning authority should give greater weight to the unmet need of particular sectors. In support of the application is evidence of need. This concludes that there is significant unmet employment floor space demand in North Northamptonshire. The applicant's evidence notes that there is a minimum requirement of at least 527 hectares of employment space. The evidence submitted by the applicant indicates that there's a strong and persistent demand for the type of facility proposed, which cannot necessarily be met by existing commitments and allocations. The existence of allocated sites in locations which better reflect the settlement hierarchy and spatial strategy do not necessarily mean that they are available, and evidence of an absence of suitable alternative sites to meet an identified need and short-term demand represents a material consideration which must be afforded weight in decision-making. The evidence supplied by the applicant suggests that the need for the development of this scale and nature exceeds what has been provided for in terms of the allocations and which is readily available to prospective operators. In addition, the focus of development on growth towns as opposed to the strategic road network, such as the A14, does not necessarily reflect the locational needs of the market or provide for what operators of logistics businesses are seeking. Given the scale of the investment and the employment created through the proposed development, the anticipated benefits to the economy are deemed substantial. Significant weight should therefore be attributed to these benefits arising to the local and regional economy, with job creation and retention in an established and strongly performing sector clearly representing economic benefits directly attributable to the proposed development. In this context, the weight afforded to the identified conflict with the spatial strategy, that being policies 11 and 24 of the core strategy, should be reduced given the direction of paragraphs 85 to 87 of the MPPF and the support afforded to supporting the growth of industries such as the logistics sector. Matters of principle aside, the application has undergone scrutiny on a range of technical grounds. Full details of those are provided in the officer's report, but just to touch on a number of those key ones in terms of landscape. Owing to the scale of development and the undeveloped agricultural nature and rural nature of the existing site, there will be a clear change in that site. The applicant submitted a landscape visual impact assessment and detailed landscape proposals for the full part of the application. The applicant's submission confirms that the proposals would have direct, permanent, long-term adverse effects, which is major moderate to moderate significance. While there are some areas of differing professional judgment between the applicant and officers, the level of impact is, however, generally agreed. However, on completion of the development and after 15 years through the inclusion of proposed mitigation and long-term management of that mitigation, there would be some residual adverse effects, with one viewpoint considered significant but others considered moderate. In terms of highways, the application proposes a package of highway works and no technical objections have been received either from the local highway authority or national highways, subject to the implementation of that mitigation, as well as improvements to local bus services, including a payment of a potential financial contribution to be secured by the Section 106. On this basis, it's considered the development will be acceptable in transport terms. In terms of flood risk and drainage, in support of the application is a flood risk assessment and drainage strategy. It identifies that the site lies within flood zone 1, and the flood risk assessment states the majority of the development is at very low risk from surface water flooding. The applicant has evidence that the development would not increase the risk of flooding either on site or elsewhere, and no objections are raised by the lead local flood authority. In terms of ecology and biodiversity, the application was submitted prior to the introduction of biodiversity net gain, and thus it is not a statutory requirement for this application. Despite this, the applicant is proposing a 43% increase in habitat units, 100% increase in hedgerow units, and a 10% increase in watercourse units. The delivery of biodiversity net gain is considered to be a benefit of the scheme, especially in the context of it not being a statutory requirement. The development has been screened under the habitats regulations owing to its proximity to the Upper Neng gravel pits SPA and Ramsar. The conclusion of that HRS screening is that all potential impacts can be ruled out from resulting in a likely significant effect, except for functionally linked land, water quality during construction and operation, and visual disturbance during the operation phase. Therefore, these impacts need further consideration at appropriate assessment. An appropriate assessment has therefore been undertaken, and this determines that in line with the precautionary principle, a mitigation strategy is needed to provide new habitat for golden plover and lapwing. The applicant has proposed off-site land, which is within 10 kilometres of the habitat site and of 20 hectares or greater in a single geographic location.
Sorry, do you mind not speaking? Because we're trying to listen. Thank you.
Sorry. The land was recommended by Natural England to the application. It has been reviewed by the council and the council's ecological advisors and confirmed as being acceptable, subject to it being secured in a Section 106 agreement for at least 80 years in accordance with Natural England guidance. Furthermore, the appropriate assessment requires submission of a construction environmental management plan prior to commencement and a landscape and ecological management plan, which can be secured to avoid the risk of harm from visual disturbance to qualifying features. All of these matters can be secured by condition and or Section 106 agreement. As advised, the HRA and appropriate assessment has been issued to Natural England for comment, and they have come back and advised that they have no objection subject to the mitigation proposed being secured. In terms of heritage, the applicant's submission assesses the likely significant effects in relation to built heritage. It concludes that the built development will be visible from the scheduled monument, and the associated reduction of the rural setting would result in a degree of harm to the significance of that setting of the scheduled monument. That harm is considered to be less than substantial. Less than substantial harm has also been identified to various other heritage assets in the local area, including the Titchmarsh Conservation Area, Grade 1 listed Church of St Mary the Virgin, and the scheduled remains of Titchmarsh Castle moated site. Officers broadly agree with the applicant's assessment. Some of the impact of the proposals on the significance of some assets would potentially be greater than suggested. However, the conclusion is still that there would be less than substantial harm. In accordance with the MPPF, that less than substantial harm needs to be weighed against the public benefit. It's the officer's view that the public benefits of the proposed development, which I will come to, clearly and demonstrably outweigh that less than substantial harm. So turning to the planning balance and the summary of the application, weighing in favour of the proposals are the provision of significant gross jobs, including indirect employment from supply chain and contributions to productivity, The provision during the construction operation phase of job, work experience and training opportunities, engagement with local businesses to maximise contract and supplier opportunities locally, and support to local schools, colleges and universities to inspire young people to consider careers in the construction and built environment sectors. Through the Employment and Skills Plan, employment prospects in the local area will be enhanced through a range of measures, including building effective relationships with local work providers, schools, colleges and job centre support. The construction of the business park would be net zero carbon, excluding development of Plot 1. A rating of BREEAM minimum of very good, with excellent is being targeted. The proposal delivers B&G of 43% habitat units, 100% hedgerow units and 10% watercourse units, where B&G is not a statutory requirement given the timing of the application. The proposal provides a network of green-linked spaces and outdoor amenities across the site that are accessible to the local community, enhancing local accessibility. Weighing against the proposed developments are the conflict with the development plan in respect of policies 11 and 24 of the core strategy, the impact on the landscape and character and appearance of the area, the less than substantial harm that has been identified to heritage assets, the loss of functionally linked land, and the adverse visual impacts of the construction phase. Considerable importance and weight is attached to any identified heritage harm, and it's considered that the public benefits of the proposed development summarised above clearly and demonstrably outweigh that identified less than substantial harm. Overall, the proposed development is not considered to accord with the development plan as a whole, and as such, it's appropriate to consider and weigh those material considerations. Officers are of the view that the benefits of the scheme outweigh the harm which has been identified, such that a decision otherwise than in accordance with the development plan can be made. It's therefore the recommendation of officers that the committee delegate powers to the Executive Director of a Place and Economy to approve the application, subject to, and let me just refer back to my update sheet. So it's approval subject to the completion of appropriate assessment to satisfy the requirements of the habitats regulations, the completion of a satisfactory Section 106 legal agreement which secures appropriate planning obligations to meet the heads of terms set out in Appendix 1 as amended by the committee update report, and to remove option 2 from the functionally linked land heads of term, and also subject to the conditions contained within Section 11 of the published report as amended by the committee update report, including any amendments to those conditions deemed necessary, and an additional condition in respect of lighting design for bats. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Charles. There are several speakers on this item, and I have used my chair's discretion to allow additional speakers, so I will now invite each to come forward. Firstly, can we have Julie Fletcher, please? Oh, he comes in for his bill, yeah. Thank you, Julie.
The tenancy of this farm has been with the same family for 3 generations. Almost 60% is best and most versatile farmland, including Grade 1 and Grade 2, very rare in Northants, and regarded as very high quality and high sensitive resource, and there's no mention of this in your report. The site has been farmed well. It is thriving with protected species, bats, badgers, linnets, yellowhammer, skylark, which will all be lost. The site is less than 250 metres from the special protection area that includes Titchmarsh and Thrapston lakes, and only 5 metres from the Castle Manor application that you rejected last month. You are the legal protectors of the jewel of the Northants Crown. This application will adversely affect the golden plover who overwinter here. This is the only special protection area that has seen such a steep decline in the bird numbers since 2011. And it's solely down to the site-specific pressures of increased development in this area. The HRA has been produced for you is inaccurate and even contradicts your own refusal of the warehouses made last month. It is unlawful that the new mitigation area over 4 kilometres away is confidential. It is a material planning consideration. The field suggested by Natural England has not been fully assessed for its suitability. As councillors, you are the competent body responsible for the SPA. How can you be satisfied beyond reasonable doubt of the mitigation is suitable when you don't even know where it is? It requires the same level of public scrutiny and consultation of the rest of the planning application. The law for the SPA is simple. You cannot ignore in-combination effects of other planning applications. The hedgerows being removed on this site are protected and significant historic assets dating from pre-1845. The loss of this site will substantially change the character of the area. Why is there no mention of their protection or the loss in your report? Titchmarsh Roman Town Schedule Monument, the setting will be destroyed. The roundabout at the 605 needs to be remodelled to be able to take the thousands of HGVs daily. The applicant has appealed to both Historic England and the Secretary of State to remove the area required from the roadworks out of the scheduled monument boundary. Both refused this request because of the scheduled monument's importance and the damage it would cause to it, and they are unlikely to give scheduled monument consent. You should refuse them as well. The acoustic barrier is 4 metres tall, the highest it can legally be to reduce noise pollution to the local residents. It's effectively a prison wall for Lazy Acre. Estate residents will feel trapped behind a wall and by the significant increase in traffic that will prevent them from getting out of their junction. 4 metres is up to the top of the glass of the balcony. You have numerous defensible grounds for refusal. Consistency in this decision-making is crucial for the Council. After your full consideration, you should refuse this application. There is plenty of land available in growth areas.
Thank you,
not
Julie.
This area.
Thank you very much. Julie, can you just remain seated a second, please? Any questions of clarification? Okay, thank you very much, Julie. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Thanks, Julie. You mentioned about bird decline in the protected area. Have you got some more information on that?
Golden plover in the Upper Nen Valley protection area have declined 97% since the SPA was created in 2011, and it's purely down. They don't like disturbance, they like wide open spaces. Lapwing have equally gone down 46% since 2011, and this is the only SPA in Britain that the decline is that much, and it's due to overdevelopment.
Any more questions or clarifications? Okay, thank you, Julie. May we have Alan Mays next, please?
I am Honorary Technical Secretary of the Northamptonshire branch of the Campaign to Protect Rural England. CPRE has opposed this application from the outset on a number of grounds, and I will sum them up under the following headings. Protection of landscape and open countryside. As with the application on the adjacent site, the proposal is a clear departure from the development plan, policies 3 and 11 of the Joint Core Strategy, and contrary to sections 15 and 16 of the NPPF. These all provide clear planning grounds for the refusal of this application. The open countryside forms a landscape setting for the historic market town of Thrapston, the Titchmarsh Conservation Area, and most importantly, the special protection areas between Titchmarsh and Aldwinkle, covering the sites of special scientific interest and the Ramsar site in the Nen Valley, from which the proposed Thrapston Business Park would be but a short distance away. There will also be a significant loss of 27 hectares, I believe, of best and most versatile agricultural land at this time when food security should be paramount to our nation, and the loss of a tenant farmer's livelihood. The views of the warehouses across the gateway to one of the Den Valley's most attractive areas will be detrimental to the Northamptonshire tourism strategy, destructive of the important landscape for which CPRE is campaigning for both national and local recognition. contradiction of the NC spatial strategy. Thrapston is a market town, not a growth town. Therefore, such large-scale development should be elsewhere. If this application is not refused, a precedent will be set for massively intensifying inappropriate growth in the wrong place, to the extent that large chunks of the Northamptonshire countryside will be lost forever. Lives will be impacted on by increased traffic, increased pollution, loss of visual amenity and natural habitat. Using section 85 of the MPPF as justification is incorrect, as this relates to policy making and not decision taking in terms of growth. Growth on this scale should be determined as part of the joint core strategy review rather than by developers trying to force the hand of the planning committee. Safeguarding significant heritage and wildlife assets. This application is in fact more intrusive upon the landscape than the earlier applications you heard this month. The impact on the setting of Titchmarsh, Grade 1 Church, the 40 listed buildings in the conservation area, the scheduled monument of the castle site and former Roman town, as well as the historic setting of Thrapston Town Centre have all been downplayed. Most of the mitigation proposals will take years to mature and will appear to be unnatural features in the landscape and can in no way compensate for the devastating impact on the significant heritage and wildlife assets of the countryside, all contrary to sections 15 and 16 of the MPPF. Mitigation and planning balance. The planning balance has been justified on the grounds of under-provision of suitable accommodation to generate accelerated growth in the area. This is at a massive cost. Thank you. We hope that you will be consistent in your judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Alan, can you just stay seated, please? Have we any questions of clarification? Thank you, Alan. You may take your seat. Cheers. Next speaker is Kevin Chaplin. You have 3 minutes, Kevin. Thank you.
This application can be summed up in 3 words: inappropriate, disproportionate and unsustainable. Only 28 days ago, this committee unanimously rejected an application for a similar development between Thrapston and Titchmarsh. This application before you sits just the width of a 5-metre wide country road away from that site. This application is even closer to the Upper Nen Valley Ramsar site and immediately adjacent to residents of the Lazy Acre estate. Suggested acoustic fencing is apparently to aid with noise reduction. A new roundabout is proposed, situated near the top of a steep incline, having the impact of increasing delays on already heavily congested A605. Tonight, you have clear and defensible grounds for refusing this application. Non-accordance and conflict with the joint core strategy. Non-accordance and conflict with the current local plan, approved as recently as December 23. Conflict with the principles of the National Planning Policy Framework of 24. The traffic model is out of date, no longer fit for purpose. Proposed minimal highway improvements are also for the site you've already refused. You should therefore consider the cumulative impacts. All other major sites in Northamptonshire have dual carriageway access. This does not. The proposal will substantially change the character and appearance of this rural area. It will put at unnecessary risk the loss of functionality linked land, critical to recognised designated assets in the nearby SPA Ramsar. This must be protected. Detraction from the rural setting of the Titchmarsh Conservation Area, direct and substantial impact on the setting of the Grade 1 listed St Mary's Church by impinging on its rural setting. Engineering improvements to the Oundle Road 605 would cause harm to the underground remains of the scheduled monument. To dismiss existing policy, the economic benefits of such a site need to be compelling. All the benefits can equally be delivered on policy-compliant sites in North Northampton without causing serious damage. This scheme does not meet that test. Unfortunately for residents of Thrapston Town Council, Thrapston Town Council have been denied the opportunity to speak this evening. Their detailed objections largely ignored in the recommendation report. The communities that elected you have spoken in their droves. Local knowledge and understanding of the area should be a crucial factor in your decision making. So why, after more than 3 years, has this matter been rushed before you? with a report written by a recently engaged external consultant without knowledge of the area and without time to consider the objections adequately. Why? If you're in any doubts, a site visit must take place before any final decision is taken. This application must be refused. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. If you just stay seated for a second. Any questions of clarification, please? You may take your seat, and Kevin. Thank you. Could we have Councillor Sylvia Prestwich, please, next? You have 3 minutes, Sylvia.
Is it? Oh, it's on. Let me tell you about our lovely village of Titchmarsh. With a population of 600, the village is in a rural setting 2 miles from Thrapston. Titchmarsh has a rich heritage with over 30 listed buildings, 25 thatched cottages and a magnificent Grade 1 listed 15th century church with a majestic 80-foot tower. The tower is a local landmark which can be seen from miles around. The village has a rich history going back over many centuries, including being the boyhood home of the poet laureate John Dryden. In recognition of its special character and charm, the village was classed as a conservation area in 2010. We have a thriving and vibrant community, including a school and preschool, a village pub, a community shop run mainly by volunteers, an active church, a sports field and pavilion, a village hall, and our very own SSSI. There's a strong community spirit in our village. The effect of this huge development on Titchmarsh will be devastating. The village will be ruined by a monstrous warehouse development covering 150 acres, taking over just about all of the fields between Thrapston and Titchmarsh and just 200 metres away at its nearest point. This is the second application for a huge warehouse development on the edge of Titchmarsh. You turned the first one down. Thank you for that. Please turn this one down. This development will be many times bigger than Titchmarsh itself. It will be overpowering and dominating. We will be engulfed. We'll totally lose our rurality and become a suburb of Thrapston, and the prominence of our church tower will be diminished by warehouses on higher ground behind it. This development will be just 250 metres from the Upper Nen Valley Gravel Pit Special Protection Area and Ramsar site, meaning that valuable habitat will be lost, adversely affecting our endangered wildlife. This huge development will be accessed via a new roundabout on the A605 at Thrapston. Haldens Parkway traffic uses one of the existing 3 roundabouts on the A605, and with this new one, there will be 4 roundabouts and a pedestrian crossing in under a mile on the A605 at Thrapston. Can you envisage the increased congestion with so many more HGVs using this already inadequate single carriageway road? I can't imagine the drivers getting out of first gear. Think of the pollution caused by their fumes, a serious hazard to health. The increased difficulty in local traffic joining the A605, not to mention heightened tempers, a recipe for disaster on all fronts. Everything will change. Our village will be desecrated. We'll lose our rurality. Our heritage assets are at risk. The village will lose its identity, will be inundated with traffic and HGVs, our endangered wildlife habitats lost, will be hounded by excessive noise and light pollution, and so on. Please don't let this happen. Please refuse this application.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of clarification or anything? Nobody? Okay, thank you very much, Sylvia. I think we need... Welcome back, Councillor. You have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman and colleagues, good evening. It is disappointing to be speaking against a large-scale industrial development in the open countryside, and still more disappointing that this is the second such application in the same vicinity. This is an entirely speculative proposal on a greenfield site. The development will have a hugely adverse impact on the rural area surrounding the village of Titchmarsh, and will also have a very detrimental effect on Thrapston and other communities located up the A605 corridor. I am frankly amazed, Chair, that NNC Highways accept the application and the other site in the same area without objection, as per their comments at 5.5, 1.1 and 2 and 3 of the report. While I conceive the developers proposed some improvements to the A605, they cannot have failed to note that all the traffic will have to use the A605 to access the A14. It is the weight of traffic that will swamp the modest improvements proposed by the developers. There is little local unemployment in the area. The jobs that might be generated as part of the scheme will necessarily involve people driving considerable distances to access the site and contribute to the cumulative impacts on the local road network, with little positive benefit to the residents most affected. As the developer points out in the note sent to all members of the Planning Committee, Policy EN 17 of the adopted East Northamptonshire Part 2 plan supports the expansion of existing business premises. This is not an expansion, but a 120-acre new build site completely dwarfing the existing Haldens Parkway development. EN 17 says there should not be significant impact on the countryside ecology, highways, the character of the surroundings, or the amenity of neighbouring properties. I think that these significant impacts speak for themselves. NNC planning policy officers object to this development. Logistics development is specifically addressed in the Joint Core Strategy at Policy 24. In particular, the mitigation of the highway's impact, the environmental and landscape impacts, and the inability of the development to address the real labour supply issues demonstrate that the development proposed is completely unsustainable. At examination of the East Northants Part 2 plan, the inspector observed that the jobs growth target had been exceeded and there was no further need to allocate further B8 sites. NNC have a strong record of delivery of housing and employment sites. However, this proposal is in the wrong place. It is unsupported by the local plan to which local planning authorities should be working. The highway's impact, the loss of valuable farmland, the eviction of a family that has been farming the land for more than 75 years, and the overbearing visual and environmental impact of these buildings will have an adverse impact which will vastly outweigh the benefits of the scheme. Mr. Chairman, the MPPF at paragraph 15 says that planning system should be genuinely plan-led. Recent changes to the NPPF do not detract from the vital importance of this point.
That's your 3 minutes, David. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I respect. All right, thank you.
David. Is there any points of clarification? No? David, take your seat. Thank you very much. Next, could we have Councillor Wendy Brackenbury, please? Wendy, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of objections to this proposal, but the fundamental point is that this is an entirely speculative development on a greenfield site in the open countryside. The site is not allocated in the North Northants Joint Core Strategy, and the cumulative impact of the development and the neighbouring development proposed will have an adverse impact which will demonstrably outweigh the benefits of the scheme. The East Northants Part 2 local plan adopted in December 23 was found sound at inspection, and the inspector found that employment needs and logistics provision were adequate in the area. I appreciate all applications need to be considered on their merits, but it is also important to consider the potential adverse cumulative effects of two emerging schemes in the immediate area. Can I please draw your attention to 5.12.1 North Northamptonshire Council Planning Policy Response? The planning policy team objects to the proposals on the basis of conflict with policies 11, the network of urban and rural areas, and table 1 of the NNJCS, and policy 24, logistics of the North Northants Joint Core Strategy. The planning application proposes a significant scale of growth at a market town location. This is not a growth town. which conflicts with the spatial strategy, and that insufficient evidence has been provided as to how and why alternative and available proposals that accord with the spatial strategy have been discounted. The proposed development will naturally have a very insignificant impact on the local area. The scale and massing of the buildings on the upper eastern edge of the Nen Valley will present a dominating appearance for many miles. The development will have an overbearing impact and will also be detrimental to the Upper Nen Valley Gravel Pits SPA. The proposals are in conflict with Policy 3 of the JCS, which deals with landscape character. 2.9 of the report states that the main site access is proposed via a new roundabout providing vehicular access from the A605 at the southwest of the site. Anyone who knows this section of the A605 will be aware that there are already 3 roundabouts, which includes junction 13 of the A14 and an access to Lazy Acre. An additional roundabout will not improve the safety or the flow of this short section of road. This proposal is in the wrong place. It is unsupported by the local plan, and although the JCS is some years old, there is no current suggestion to allocate these sites in the emergent Part 1 plan, which NNC are working on now. The proposals are in conflict with criteria that were judged sound by the inspector when the JCS was approved. Northamptonshire are not afraid of sustainable development, and our delivery rates, both for housing and employment sites, speak for themselves. The NPPF at paragraph 15 states that the planning system should be genuinely plan-led. Changes to the NPPF made recently do not distract from this point. This application would, if allowed, drive a coach and horses through this principle. I urge the committee to refuse this application. In particular, please refer to the comments made with the planning policy team. You will have also received an email this morning from the tenant farmer who farms the glebe land. He's not been given the opportunity to address you this evening, and can I ask that you consider his words carefully before coming to your conclusions?
Thank you very much, Wendy.
Thank you.
If you could just stay seated. Any questions of clarity? You may take your seat, Wendy. Thank you very much. Could we have Councillor Joe Gardner next, please? Joe, you have 3 minutes.
Every year, the Council expends a considerable amount of time, money and effort in maintaining and updating the local plan, also known as the Northamptonshire Joint Course Strategy. And yet when the time comes to actually use and implement the local plan, it is simply shredded and ignored by this Council's planning department. What a terrible waste of taxpayers' money. The local plan is quite clear. Developments of this scale are to be sited in towns designated as growth towns in the plan. Thrapston is not designated as a growth town in that plan. Now there will be some councillors who might say, why should it be that Corby or Kettering should lose green spaces to these ugly, mega-sized warehouses, whilst the likes of Thrapston and Titchmarsh are allowed to preserve theirs? I am not unsympathetic to that view, but the local plan is a legal document and should be observed until changed through the correct legal procedure. It is not for any one individual planning officer to de facto change the status of Thrapston from a market town to a growth town. In so doing, this particular planning officer is exceeding his lawful authority. He is, to use the Latin and legal phrase, acting ultra vires. Ultra beyond, vires the powers. He is assuming the powers that rightfully belong to us as councillors, all 68 councillors. Thrapston can only be redesignated as a growth town by councillors acting in consultation with the senior management team of the planning department, in consultation with Thrapston Town Council, in consultation with the various parish councils, in consultation with residents of Thrapston Ward, and finally in consultation with the Planning Inspectorate, who must sign off any change in designation of Thrapston to a growth town. That is the lawful procedure. In order to comply with the current and legal local plan, you must refuse planning permission.
Thank you, Joe. Just stay seated for a second. Any points of clarity? Okay, thank you, Joe. Take your seat. Next, we have David Smith and Mark Smith, if you'd like to come and speak. As I've allowed additional objectors to speak, you are permitted to speak up to 9 minutes between you.
Good evening. My name is David Smith, the Director of Planning and Communities at Iron Properties. I am joined by Mark Sitch, Director of Stantec Planning. We welcome the officer's report and recommendation that the application be approved, and I'd now like to put the proposals into context for members. I'm going to start with the economic picture. This development would represent over £100 million of investment at a time when Northamptonshire and the rest of our county, let alone country, need to find ways of kick-starting growth. Thrapston Business Park is one such catalyst of growth. It will deliver 2,100 good jobs. It can protect existing ones too. Logistics is an important part of our proposals, which responds to an overwhelming market need in 2025, which was not envisaged in a local plan adopted in 2016, and one with an evidence base older than that. Your own recently adopted economic growth strategy, published earlier this month, highlights the value and opportunity from logistics, referencing the sector more than 30 times. The scheme also provides for a range of uses across a range of building scales. Again, the growth strategy also seeks to support a greater diversity in the business mix. Our mix includes the potential for manufacturing too. We need to manufacture more in the UK. The site provides an opportunity to deliver good jobs in manufacturing and create a more resilient and diverse local economy for Northamptonshire. The proposals will also provide space for local entrepreneurial small businesses that currently cannot find the right space. Such space is in short supply and difficult to bring forward in isolation. Your local plan supports proposals for the growth and expansion of existing businesses. It's also supportive of sites that provide smaller business units. But it's important to look at the wider economic benefits too. Thrapston Business Park will deliver business rates income for Northamptonshire of around £5 million a year. That works out at £13,700 a day, which could be reinvested into essential local services. That is a serious and significant amount of income at a time with challenging local authority budgets. Indeed, the council's debt is £457 million. It is a debt that cannot be tackled by relying on savings or making efficiencies. However, supporting the application is not about having to choose between economic benefit and the environment. It is possible to deliver this site and mitigate its impact on the environment too. There is a balance to be struck, and we have worked hard to achieve that. Our proposals would have high quality landscaping to reduce visual impact. We have acoustic measures to mitigate noise, with any residual impact assessed as barely perceptible. We've set out to protect and significantly...
Sorry, can we just let the chap speak? Have a little bit of respect, please. Yeah? Thank you.
We've set out to protect and significantly enhance ecology as part of an approach to biodiversity, and our approach to overwintering birds has been endorsed and approved by Natural England and your own advisors. The FFL mitigation land has been advocated and agreed with Natural England and Place Services. However, for commercial sensitivity reasons, it is not to be and need not be disclosed for your planning decision. Some people have said it's not possible to fill the roles and challenge where people come from. You've heard from objectors this evening, this is not the right location. Thrapston is absolutely the right location for occupiers who want close proximity to a route of national and international importance. Equally, occupiers would not be interested in this site if it wasn't an acceptable location for labour. There are near 10,000 working age people in Thrapston and environs, and within a 20-minute drive of the site, there is a working age population in excess of 167,000. Notably, there is a latent labour supply of 18,000 people economically inactive. You've heard issues around the lack of labour supply. The labour market is fluid. The scheme will not deliver 2,100 jobs in one day. The increasing breadth and diversity of employment across the uses we are proposing will provide significant opportunity in the years ahead. The Logistics UK Skills Review 2023 identified that 30% of the logistics workforce occupy jobs in higher level skills. Equally, just touching on the so-called low skills doesn't mean no skills. Jobs at entry level provide challenges in maths, English, communication, problem solving, and also give lots of new entrants to the workforce an understanding of the attributes to work successfully in the workplace. Good connectivity is essential. It is not in our interest to build something that people can't get to. Our priority is to connect people to jobs and maximise sustainable travel. But there is a practical reality that many of us, including many in this room, choose to commute to work. Our plan is to realise additional bus services that will also support existing communities. National Highways and North Northamptonshire Council have both determined that the development would not result in a severe impact on highway safety or capacity in Thrapston. We have worked hard to ensure that from great design to landscaping and ecology, there is quality throughout the application. There is no other site that can presently accommodate what is envisaged by this scheme. And critically, this is an application which is technically compliant. It is endorsed by independent professionals at the Environment Agency, Historic England, Natural England, National Highways, and your council officers. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we do appreciate you have an important decision to make, and there is a planning balance to judge. Thrapston Business Park can be a catalyst for much needed growth, jobs, and economic impact. It is recommended for approval by your officers. The balance, we say, is in favour of the proposals. I therefore commend the application to committee, and if approved, look forward to investing here in North Northants in line with your economic growth strategy, recently adopted, and delivering a scheme of real quality and benefit for North Northants. Mr. Sitch, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Chair. Members, could I just come back on a couple of points that were raised by other speakers before us? Reference was made to the recent decision by this planning committee at a nearby site. This planning application is to be considered on its individual merits. The planning committee should not be tied by that.
Sorry, please don't interrupt. Yeah, please. Thank you.
The planning committee are not tied by that previous decision. Secondly, reference has been made to paragraph 15 in terms of plan making. It is also to recognise that planning law requires that applications for planning permission should be determined in accordance with the development plan unless other material considerations indicate otherwise. This is the case of which your officers have gone through and set out in the officers' report before you. Of significance, there is reference to the East Northamptonshire Local Plan, December 2023. That is a Part 2 plan that follows the Part 1 plan, the Joint Core Strategy. Therefore, it aligns with that Joint Core Strategy. Its evidence base predates the adoption in 2016 and is of some age, considerable age. Yes, there'll be a review, but that is some time away. In those circumstances, we look to make decisions now to meet the unmet need now. Importantly, in terms of the scheduled monument, we have no objection from Historic England, and we have agreed with Historic England that a scheduled monument consent application can follow should planning permission be given this evening. In the context of the acoustic fence, that will sit behind existing and established planting of significant size, as well as being planted and located appropriately itself, and has been considered by environmental protection. Lastly, in the context of the planning application, whether it's landscape, ecology, golden plover, lapwings, an environmental statement was submitted with the planning application. This was updated last year following the scheduling of the scheduled monument designation. And we've also carried out further wintering bird surveys over this winter, and again, do not consider the land to be functionally linked. Notwithstanding that, we have obviously provided provisions for that. Thank you.
Thank you. If you just stay seated. Any questions of clarity, please? Councillor?
Hi, you mentioned 2,100 jobs. Is that over one unit or all four?
Sorry, that's over the entirety of the site.
And when would that likely to be completed?
It would inevitably be subject to the phasing of the development. So it's quite difficult to say with any great precision as to when occupiers come, aside from occupier for Unit 1. So I can't give you a precise programme for that, but subject to a decision here, a positive decision here, or a resolution and then a consent, we know from experience that the detailed highways work required to bring forward those improvements will probably take a year to actually get approval, 9 months to a year, and then there's probably a year worth of work on and off to actually deliver a site that's ready to be capable of being occupied. So you're several years away from the jobs being created, which is an important point because what we know now may not be the situation in terms of jobs and security in 2, 3, 4 years' time.
Sorry, please, let him speak. Yeah. Sorry.
Any plans to put any renewable energy on the roofs, like solar panels and stuff?
Yes, absolutely. The scheme is a combination of BREEAM very good and BREEAM excellent. And that will include, alongside some of the carbon, the net zero carbon commitments, the need for PVs on the roofs. The important thing from our perspective will be to size those PVs right, so we're not creating too much energy that can't then be harnessed. So it normally is the case that we base build, we provide what we need to for the building to function, and then the occupier comes and we add, or they add more PVs on the roof to deal with their own specified demands.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Towns?
Yeah, thank you for the information you've given us. I was curious about the 2025 market need. It's probably a very complex matter, but could you give us some explanation and background to where this need's coming from and where the market is?
Certainly, Councillor. So the Joint Core Strategy obviously would have had and looked at employment need during its formulation and ultimately its examination and adoption. That would have taken place before 2016, so 2015, maybe 2014, and that would have looked at the need at that time and the market at that time. If we move forward 9, 10 years, the position has changed, and that's why we review local plans, of course, but the position has changed, and the A14 corridor has become attractive to the marketplace, to occupiers who wish to locate close to the A14 in terms of reaching their markets. In terms of the need case, we've then looked at the need within Northamptonshire in terms of now and for the next period of time, 10 years plus. So we've updated that needs position that would have existed back in 2014, 2015. And that's identified an unmet need of significance. It also has considered the existing supply, and reference was made to the allocated sites and the availability of those. We've actually considered those sites, and the majority of those are taken, and those that aren't taken aren't suitable for this scale of proposal that we're looking for in terms of meeting the market. And that's federally twofold in terms of the industrial market, in terms of logistics and manufacturing, but also we have policy support and a need for, and is supported by your regeneration officer, for small and medium-sized units. So again, there's another need there identified, and that's what we've looked to respond to, both through the pre-application process and ultimately through the presentation of the application.
Any more questions? Paul?
Right, sorry, just quickly. You have on here, I think, is it DVS are going into that Unit 1?
As set out in the application, yeah.
That as set out on it?
Yeah.
So is that guaranteed they're going in there? Or is that you assuming that they want it because it's behind their existing building?
That's the conversations we've had for three plus years.
That's the conversation you've had.
Yes.
They're looking to expand and they want that
That's
warehouse.
as per the application. I mean, the documentation sets out in some detail the background to that. But yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So the other four are basically speculative. You're not sure who's going in there yet.
The word speculative has lots of connotations. You've just heard from Mr. Sitch the need and the evidence of the need in that respect. It's not speculative, but we would accept, as heard by other speakers here, that the site isn't allocated. So in that regard, you could describe it as speculative, but the need is not speculative. We know the need exists. We've also had conversations historically with other occupiers, including other local occupiers in Haldens Parkway, who would like to expand. So we're confident that the remainder of the space would be taken.
Okay. There was something else I was going to ask. No, I think that's it. So, yeah, sorry. So, I mean, I realise this is on the A14 corridor, and there's huge pressure for this corridor, for all the land along that corridor. When you talk about other companies going in there, are we talking about logistics companies or factories or what kind of?
Well, as you've heard, the scheme affords all of those, from the smallest to the biggest. So, yeah, we're trying to cater for that broad market.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Can I just say, in land use terms, it includes manufacturing as part of the applications, which refer, so that is part of the proposal. So it's logistics, manufacturing. So it's the ability for those other plots to come forward for manufacturing or logistics. And then, as it's been referenced by the case officer and ourselves, in terms of plot 4, that is identified for small and medium-sized units. It's referred to as the innovation park, in effect, and that's what we've been discussing with your regeneration officer in terms of how we present that. There's also policy identification and need for that, so we've responded to that. There's a full range. Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any more clarity questions? Okay, thank you. Take your seats. Giles, would you like to respond to any of that?
Just a very couple of clarification points, if I may. It was characterised by one of the speakers that the town of Thrapston would be redesignated as a growth town as a result of the officer recommendation, and if the application were to be approved. Just to confirm that a planning decision does not redesignate the town, and it wouldn't change the status of the town within the development plan. It would remain as a market town.
It's a bit academic, though, isn't it?
And it was also characterised that the officer decision and officers are acting illegally in that they are making a decision which is contrary to some of the policies of the development plan, as was identified by the applicant. The law does allow for that. So section 38(6) of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004 allows for decisions to be made which aren't in accordance with the development plan, provided that there are material considerations that indicate otherwise. So that is the planning balance that the officers have undertaken. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Charles. Just for clarity, would any councillors like to come back on the officer for any clarity? No? James?
Yes, I was wondering, we showed us the nice undulating landscape around the site and the warehouses, and you showed a cross-section through the site. I just want to know how much change to the landscape there's going to be with cut and fill involved in that, and if there's any provision once the warehouses, industrial units are no longer required, would that be put back to its original state?
So in terms of the cut and fill, I can't tell you the precise amount and volumes of cut and fill that would be required, but in essence the proposal creates 3 plateaus to allow the development of the kind of large building plots. So that would step down from Islington down to the A605. In terms of remediation of the site post the lifetime of the development, no, there's no provision in the decision for that, and that wouldn't be common for a development of this nature, which is seeking permanent consent.
And just on the acoustic barrier, we heard from the IM developers team about the acoustic barrier. How effective is that going to be? I know it's generally there's quite a lot of traffic noise in the area, but obviously there will be noise generated by logistics, and if they're talking about industrial development, how effective is that acoustic barrier going to be, given the proximity to residents in Thrapston, at keeping noise levels to basically what they are or would be now?
So the very purpose of that barrier is to reduce noise levels to an acceptable standard relative to those adjacent properties. So it would reduce sound levels to within the kind of tolerable or acceptable thresholds.
So that has been demonstrated by an acoustician?
Yes, yeah, I'm just checking the Environmental Health Officer's comments, if I may. Bear with.
So whilst we're looking for that, I think the key thing is that the environmental protection team have no objection to the application. So they've looked at the detail of these elements. They are the technical experts in this field, but there's no objection from them to this application.
Yeah, apologies. I haven't got in the report that the level that the noise would be reduced to. But yeah, on the basis of no objection from environmental protection, it would be within that tolerable and acceptable levels.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you, Charles. For the purpose of debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution, Meeting Procedures Rules 19.2 and 19.21, I will move the recommendation at item 10, page 120 of the report, that the powers be delegated to the Executive Director of Place and Economy to grant planning permission, subject to the completion of Habitats Regulations Assessment, HRA.
Sorry, Chair, the recommendation was changed verbally by the officer.
Okay, sorry.
So the recommendation is as it's set out in the addendum sheet, with the addition of the removal of option 2 in the section 106 heads of terms, and the addition of an additional condition relating to lighting, the protection of bats, or the consideration of bats in terms of the lighting. So that's the new motion to be put.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor. Right, members will now debate the application, please. Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. Just before I start, Chair, may I say thank you to the lady from Titchmarsh. I haven't been, I don't think I've been to Titchmarsh before, but after listening to you, this overwhelming rush, or a desire to rush to the car and get myself over there. I will do so in the future. Thank you for that. Yeah, Chair, sorry. I digress there. I don't know about anyone else, but I have a strong feeling of déjà vu this evening. And I feel pretty much exactly the same this evening as I did at our last planning committee meeting. And my own personal decision this evening will be as it was at the last one. I can't, someone says you can't ignore previous applications, you must have consistency. Yeah, that's quite true. But I think equally importantly, we must respect our joint court strategy, our local plan. Pardon me. And I feel there's some conflict here with our local plan. Minimal transport improvements have been offered, and minimal, I think, is the operative word here. We're not tied by previous decisions, we know that, but we can be guided by them, and we can adopt our consistency from them. I think to ignore our local plan would be disrespectful to our officers, to our councillors, and most importantly, to our residents. The economic argument is a difficult one to argue with, and a difficult one to disagree with. But I would put the benefits of this area and its people before economic benefits. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
Chair, just at this juncture, I'd just like to remind members of the committee that we need to be determining this application independently and on its own merit, and not be considering any previous applications that have been considered by the planning committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Legal. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Towns?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think I have a reasonably long list of things to consideration. I believe the developer has demonstrated that there is probably a market need for this site, but I'm not convinced that other sites, particularly now growth towns, are not adequate to provide this. And we've also heard that the job allocation is being met within North Northamptonshire from current proposals. It's a pity the loss of the agricultural land, and it does concern me about the significant refiguring of the landscape in that area, and with the prospect that it's never going to be put back to what it was. It's always going to be disturbed. And I'm also concerned about the effect on the wildlife, especially with the special protection area. And we've heard the decline in the golden plover bird, a significant 97% reduction. So that concerns me about ongoing effects. I can acknowledge the biodiversity gain, but there's also the loss of established habitat for biodiversity, and the establishment of new is always going to be an issue. The fact that the site isn't in a growth town, it is a reasonable distance away from the population centres where we're going to find workers. I think we've been told about 10,000 people in Thrapston. I'm sure they're not all looking for jobs right now, and I'm not too sure how many would want to go and work on this site. Yes. I think that's some of the main points I have.
Thank you, Councillor. Scott?
The officer mentioned earlier on that there's a 520 hectares requirement. I appreciate I may be putting you on the spot here, but how much of that is already allocated? And is there available space within the growth towns to fulfil that requirement? My concern is that we're going to have a lot of focus on developing growth towns rather than market towns, rightly so perhaps. But if we can't meet that need in growth towns, then we're obviously going to have a problem.
Thank you, Scott.
So, Councillor, I believe you're referring to the figures quoted in paragraphs 5.12.29 and 5.12.30 in the report, which is the SEMLEP report. So the SEMLEP report is for the wider area. It's a report that we were party to as a council, and what it identifies is that in the period from 2021 to 2040, estimates that after accounting for existing supply, a shortfall of between 237 hectares to 576 hectares could occur across the SEMLEP area. So that report is about looking at a wider than a North Hants area, but that would be a key piece of evidence that we would need to consider as part of the evidence base of our forthcoming local plan. So that is an indication of the challenges we're facing in terms of the area, the wider regional need. What the applicant has set out before you is that they believe there is a need in this area, and they're trying to meet that need for several sectors with the application they've put forward to you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much. I think we've had a good discussion. The recommendation as detailed on page 120 of the report has been moved and seconded, and we'll now go to the vote. Members, can you please vote clearly, holding up your relevant coloured cards? Those in favour? Eight. Those against? Any abstentions? So I'd say the vote was carried. Yeah, the vote has been carried by 8. Yeah.
Just for clarification, that's 8 votes in favour, 2 votes against, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you.
Your promises are worth absolutely nothing. Shame on you.
Could you please not interrupt?
My life will be ruined. Interrupt. How dare you? 7 days notice, you won't let people in. And then you come out of this.
Sorry.
We've got to the end of the item, so if we adjourn for 5 minutes to allow them to disperse.
Now for we'll have an adjournment now for 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Right, thank you everybody. Thank you everybody. We are now going to move to item 5, application NE 22000266-FUL. Rockingham Forest Park, Cliffe. Okay. Change of use. I'll invite Planning Officer Peter Bache, please.
Thank you, Chair. So before we start, there's the committee update sheet in front of you that details an additional condition that we are proposing to put on the application, condition 25. Also deals with some late representations that were received from Nassington Parish Council and representations from a neighbour. I also have a verbal update that a further neighbour objection was received today in regards to flooding during a heavy rainfall event in Kingscliff. The objection also reiterates previous issues that are covered in the committee report. So planning permission is sought for the change of use of land at Rockingham Forest Park to provide 64 tourist lodges and associated facilities to improve and enhance the holiday park that is already in existence on the site. In terms of location of the site, in the wider context, Rockingham Forest Holiday Park is located in the rural north of the district. To get your bearings from the map, you can see the nearby villages of Kingscliff and Nassington, with Wansford and the A1 corridor further to the east. The location of a holiday park allows visitors to access to some of the best tourism opportunities that Northamptonshire has to offer. This is the site location plan. This shows the existing phase 1 of 50 holiday lodges, which is marked out just here, with the proposed additional 64 lodges and facilities building to the west. The access road to the holiday park runs from Kingscliff Road to the north, with the access point being just here. This is the access. As you can see, it's completely adequate for the site. If anything, it's probably slightly over-engineered. It has 17 metres of pull-off distance, which is enough for an articulated vehicle. Here's a zoomed-in block plan that shows the layout of Phase 2. We have the 64 lodges positioned around the site, with the proposed facilities building in the middle. This building just here is called the Command Post, and it's a cafe that's currently in operation on the site. Here's an aerial view of the site. As you can see, we have the 50 lodges that comprise Phase 1 just here, amongst the clearing of the woodland. Phase 2 is to be located over here. So there's a slight gap here, so this area is left untouched, and Phase 2 starts approximately on this field here. For reference point, the facilities building would be located in between the two pockets of trees, trees and hedges that you see just here. I think this photo, what this photo does show is how contained the holiday park will be. No trees will be chopped down, as the lodges will be positioned on the grassed area with good existing boundary treatments in place that will further be enhanced through a comprehensive landscape mitigation strategy. Here are some photos of the lodges. So this is Phase 1. The lodges will be all very similar in nature, typical of these photos. And this shows how they blend in with the countryside around them. This is a part of the play park on the grass area in between the two phases. And that's the Command Post cafe as it currently stands. These are the plans for the proposed facilities building, which will become the focal point for Rockingham Forest Holiday Park and provide a range of facilities such as a swimming pool, a gym, spa, sauna, steam rooms, changing rooms, soft play, and a small shop and bistro-style restaurant/cafe with a decking area. It's considered that the building is well designed and the low-level nature is welcomed. You saw photos of the lodges earlier, but these are the typical plans that show the single-storey lodges in a variety of layouts. The high-quality design of the lodges will accord with Phase 1 and blend in well with its surroundings. So in terms of the principle of development, the MPPF provides an overarching support for tourism opportunities, whilst the Joint Core Strategy has a specific policy that supports tourism opportunities in the Rockingham Forest under policy number 21. Policy EN14 of the East Northants Local Plan Part 2 confirms that tourism is a long-standing priority within the former East Northants area and to help deliver an increased economic benefits in the form of tourism spending and job creation within the rural areas. The plan goes on to state that East Northants has a wide range of tourist and cultural assets, from the River Nen to churches and idyllic villages to significant tracts of woodland, many of which contribute to defining the Rockingham Forest. It's important to not only protect and enhance tourism, but to actively support new tourism and visitor attractions through the planning process. In this instance, Rockingham Forest Holiday Park is ideally situated to make best use of the great tourism opportunities within the district. The local plan goes on to reference Rockingham Forest Holiday Park as a significant improvement to the overall provision of tourist accommodation in the rural north of the district. It's important to point out that the holiday park exists and the proposal will add and enhance the tourism provision at an existing well-contained site discrete from public views. As such, it is considered that the principle of development is acceptable, subject to material planning considerations. So in terms of the considerations, the committee report goes into some detail of the assessment of these, but to try and summarise, the proposal is considered to have an acceptable impact on the character and appearance of the area through careful, well-thought design. The site benefits from very good levels of existing screening and boundary treatment, but nonetheless a detailed landscape strategy will be secured via condition as part of any consent. Highways is considered acceptable, with both the Local Highway Authority and National Highways reviewing the application and offering no objection to the proposal. The proposal provides the necessary visibility displays onto Kingscliff Road and suitable car parking provision across the site. Whilst it is acknowledged that development would increase vehicle movements to and from the site, this is not considered to have a negative impact on the local network. In terms of residential amenity, due to the location of the holiday park, the closest permanent residential dwelling is approximately 1 kilometre away. The development is considered to have no significant impact on residential amenity, and environmental protection officers have offered no objection to the proposal. Archaeology has been dealt with via an evaluation which included trial trenching across the site. Given the site's history as a World War II airfield, it was not surprising that no remains were discovered, and the archaeology advisors raised no objection in this regard. In terms of ecology, the application is accompanied by a vast collection of ecology reports and assessments, all confirming acceptance of the proposal. The development has been assessed by the NNC ecologists, the Wildlife Trust and Natural England, who all offer no objection. Protected species will not be harmed and suitable mitigation measures will be put in place and secured via condition. There is a policy requirement for the development to provide biodiversity net gain. And although the application predates the statutory requirement, the submitted B&G metric confirms that there will be a net gain in biodiversity, and the scheme is therefore acceptable in this regard. In terms of flood and draining, the site presents a low risk of flooding, being entirely within flood zone 1, and surface water drainage measures have been confirmed acceptable by the local lead local flood authority, subject to a number of conditions. With regard to the drainage of foul water, a late representation as detailed in the committee update sheet was received this week from Anglian Water. Despite originally offering no objection to the proposal, an objection has been received, so to speak, in the sense that Anglian Water also suggests a condition which may be employed to address the objection. As it stands, connection would be made to the sewer system to take foul water to the Cliffe Water Recycling Centre, which has headroom for the flow. The issue appears to be that some elements of the Asian sewer pipes within Cliffe are struggling with capacity issues, which is an issue that we find ourselves in across the district. And this has led to the objection from Anglian Water. However, it is considered that the condition, as suggested by Anglian Water, would suitably address the issue, which forms the basis of their objection, by preventing the development from taking place until such time that suitable mitigation strategy is agreed. Officers are satisfied that, in this case, a condition would prevent the development from proceeding until relevant utility network improvements would take place and would be appropriate. This is a typical approach to managing issues around the capacity of utility infrastructure and is a lawful approach in dealing with the issue. Following a conversation with Anglian Water, in this instance it appears to be the case of finding an alternative connection point that avoids the problem area of the sewer pipe network. This would need to be explored as part of the strategic water strategy as required by the proposed condition. The recommendation is therefore to include this condition as condition number 25 as per the update sheet. So in conclusion, the proposed expansion of the established holiday park supports the tourism aspirations of the development plan and is not considered to cause undue harm that would outweigh the economic, social and environmental benefits of the proposal. The recommendation is therefore one of approval, subject to the conditions in section 11 of the committee report and with the addition of condition 25 as per your update sheet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Pete. We have 3 registered speakers for this item, so can I invite Sandra Beale to come forward, please? Sandra Beale. Good evening, Sandra. You have 3 minutes. Would you like to do your mic?
I'll just get this on, please. Okay, thank you, councillors. Do I start?
Yeah, could you just move your mic a little bit closer to you, please?
Okay. In May 2022, I raised an objection about nature conservation, highway safety and paperwork errors. In June, I raised an objection about fire and highway safety. In July, I raised another objection about highway safety. Wansford is a notorious accident black spot. Yet the applicant intends to increase lodge guest traffic using the Wansford junctions and same road dominated by a growing number of HGVs generated by his industrial businesses. I hope you agree safety should be a top priority for Landor Rockingham Forest Park, as many families now visit the site. I'm not a lawyer, but have noticed some obvious legal errors in the paperwork. The applicant doesn't own all the land to achieve the Phase 2 development, which the case officer may have failed to notice. There is also a legal error regarding the Town and Country Planning Environmental Impact Assessment Regulations 2017. The committee report, para 2.9, states the proposed development doesn't meet the relevant indicative thresholds for environmental impact assessment. However, a holiday village falls within section 12C of Schedule 2, where a threshold of half a hectare would trigger an EIA requirement. The application site covers more than 8 hectares. It is 17 times over the threshold, so Regulation 4 in brackets 2 requires consideration of whether the development will have significant effects on the environment. With this in mind, I draw your attention to the proposal to pump the foul water uphill into Kingscliff Sewer, which regularly suffers winter flooding. My June objection includes a photo of the last incident in January 2024, with more photos published today. Anglian Waters objected, highlighting sewer capacity constraints and pollution risk. In accordance with Regulation 8, a Schedule 2 development, which will have significant effects on the environment, must be screened for an EIA, regardless of whether the developer has made a screening request or not. Under Regulation 3, it would be unlawful for the Council to grant for permission for what is EIA development without first ensuring an EIA has been carried out. The 2017 Habitats Regulations prohibit the granting of planning permission for development which is likely to have a significant environmental impact on a European site, including one that hosts a priority species such as the curlew. These red-listed birds continue to be heard and seen on and around the Lodge Park. I have constantly raised concerns with the Council about the applicant not adhering to planning conditions designed to protect biodiversity and the environment granted to the existing development. The Council's Ecology Advisor raised similar concerns with her comments on the 6th of June. The case officer is aware development has already taken place within the Phase 2 application site, therefore the pre-commencement conditions are invalid.
Thank you very much, Sandra.
Thank you.
If you may remain seated just for a few seconds.
Okay, thank you.
Have we got any questions of clarity, please? Scott?
Thank you. You mentioned at the beginning of your speech an increase in HGV. I was just, is that from the park? Because
No, the applicant has a couple of industrial businesses on the adjacent land, Kingscliff Industrial Estate, which he manages, and Bray Solutions warehousing, and these businesses are generating an awful lot of HGVs on the Kingscliff Road. Where the access to the Lodge Park is located. And this growth actually began in 2018 of HGVs, accompanied growth of warehousing on Kingscliff Industrial Estate.
Okay, thank you. I think it's important to clarify that HGV traffic isn't attributed to this application, though. That's correct.
It's an impact on the lodge guest traffic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any more clarification questions? Okay, thank you very much, Sandra.
Okay, thank you.
Would Councillor Simon Farrell like to come up next, please? You have 3 minutes, Simon.
How much?
3 minutes.
3, not 5.
Oh, have you got 5? Yeah. Okay, sorry, Simon. Yeah, you have 5.
I may not need 5, I don't know, but there we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. The information received this afternoon addresses exactly the matter I was wishing to raise with the committee tonight, so I'm pleased to read it, and I hope the committee will support. So that's the Anglian water condition that's to be applied. I have shared a copy of this presentation with Peter and thank him for his responses, but I would welcome, obviously, him sharing them with the committee as well. I would seek clarification that this option of the Anglian water piece is only for the proposed new lodges and the existing site will continue with their existing wastewater arrangements. Although I would hope that the developers would also consider alternative options such as a reed bed solution for the whole site. I would like to ask whether the proposed action with Anglian Water will also include a construction management plan for the proposed piping along the railway line towards Kingscliff, which is a permissive path which has been made good by a local voluntary group as incredibly popular with walkers and dog walkers from Kingscliff, used consistently every day of the year. If a construction management plan isn't automatically included, I hope it could be. The following may well be best addressed in a planning induction session, but I must almost also share that the notification of this planning application appears to have left little time for parish councils and others to respond. It appears that notification in 2022 was 29th of April with a 20th of May deadline, and then recently 2nd of June 2025 notification with a deadline of 23rd of June, and then committee notice following almost immediately on the 2nd of July for the meeting tonight. Whereas the Rockingham Forest Park have had, in this period from the 20th of May 22 to 2nd of June 25, added 35 documents to the planning application, acknowledging that some of these, a good number of them perhaps acknowledge earlier responses, so there is a positive to that. But equally, there's a hell of a lot of information that people need to plough through to be able to respond to this application. Parish council meeting dates are invariably set a year in advance, and rules are such that unless something is on the agenda, it can't be dealt with at that scheduled meeting. So if parish councils have been able to reconsider and contribute to this consultation, they have done incredibly well in 21 days, and that's 15 working days. I don't know if there's a statutory minimum consultation period. Whilst there are different councils, they do represent exactly the same people that we represent, so I think it is incumbent upon us to give them the best opportunity to engage. I also believe that the report to the committee should provide some form of answer to the points raised by the parish councils, as is the case in the supplementary paper for Nassington Parish Council, where there's an officer response. That isn't the case with the main paper, especially as the first paragraph of the paper acknowledges the objections received contain substantive material planning considerations. I therefore believe that they deserve a response. Finally, I wish I had the knowledge and experience to comment on the environmental elements associated with this application, but I don't. Anyway, though, I don't think I could match the knowledge and passion for the area and these aspects that leaps off the screen as you read individuals and local responses. Sadly, though, I think the statutory consultation responses have rather undermined those. Natural England Wildlife Trust and North Hampshire Council Nature Development have all effectively accepted the application, sadly. From what I've learned in the last few months, I think I understand the recommendation for approval in planning terms, although I don't agree with all that has been stated by the statutory consultees. I think common sense and traffic sometimes don't necessarily align with some of the calculations that we get to read, if you remember back to the last meeting and the A14 and the warehouse issue. Personally, I don't believe that all the promises and aspirations of the park in terms of benefits to the local community, visits to local tourist locations, using local facilities will actually transpire. However, I would welcome the opportunity to engage with the developers to try and address this for the local benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. If you just stay seated. Questions for clarity, please. Scott?
Not so much a question, just maybe a little bit of advice. I know previously I've engaged with officers where there's been applications whereby parish councils haven't had the ability to meet prior to the deadline. I know I've engaged with officers before and they've allowed comments after the deadline or extended the deadline on occasion. So, yeah, just for future reference, just keep your eye on that.
If I could just respond to that as well. One of the first ward councillor inquiries I submitted was to ask what was happening with this application because it's been on the book since 2022. And I was concerned that it would suddenly appear and land at a planning committee meeting exactly as it has. Sadly, I got the response to that inquiry yesterday. So I was keen to try and encourage responses to this application. It disappeared into the ether and has now reappeared, and I think it has given some challenges to the to parish councils and others in the area.
Thank you. Gordon?
You say you don't think the people will use the local facilities. What are you basing that on?
I've been involved in a community sports project down the hill from there for the last 15 years. We've got a pump track, we've got a gym, we've got sports fields, we've got fantastic play equipment. Just opened a fantastic new piece 2 weeks ago. I can't say I've ever actually spoken to anyone from the Rockingham Forest Park who's come down the hill and used that facility. It's a fantastic facility for King's Cliffe. I encourage anyone to come and visit it, but I don't think people come down. I think they enjoy staying, enjoying the secluded nature of the site and enjoying that site. So that's great. It's a great holiday opportunity for them. I don't discourage that, but equally there's lots of promises about tourism engagement and so on. I also think that possibly they're going to go tourist way. They might go, I'll go Stamford and out of the county.
But if the facilities are so good there, why would they not just stay there?
I accept that. I accept that. I'm commenting on the fact that there's lots of aspirational points about the benefits to the local community and the tourism in the area, and I thoroughly encourage that and would endorse that. I'm not convinced if it doesn't happen, then people are enjoying the holiday where they are with the jacuzzis, which is going to add to the pressure on the wastewater.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much, Simon. And next we have Becky Brown, please. Becky, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Rockingham Forest Holiday Park strapline is take a breath, explore the park and relax. It particularly appeals to those holidaymakers who want to unwind from their day-to-day lives and reconnect with nature. The park has won numerous awards, including Visit Britain Gold and Rose Awards for exceptional quality of accommodation and customer service. Phase 1 of the park was designed and has been built out with environmental stewardship at its core. This will continue into Phase 2. The park's retained ecologists have worked closely with the council, with the proposal revised several times to fully address previous concerns. The single-storey lodges have been set away from existing boundary hedgerows to ensure adequate buffers, and these hedgerows will be reinforced with native shrubs. The facilities building has been purposefully nestled between two existing tree groups, which will help to ground it and screen it from public views. The public right-of-way which crosses the site will be flanked by native hedgerows, creating a linear habitat feature for foraging bats and invertebrates. The applicant actively manages the woodland within its 250-hectare estate to ensure its long-term sustainability and has facilitated ecology-related projects such as butterfly conservation's habitat enhancement schemes. Both your economic growth strategy and national and local planning policies support the expansion of existing businesses and new tourist and leisure developments. The park currently provides 11 full-time jobs and 25 people are employed by the contract cleaning company. All of these are taken by local people, many of which live a very short distance from the site. Phase 2 will generate 31 new full-time positions and 23 part-time jobs. Guests are actively encouraged to explore the variety of attractions the area has to offer, including the local pubs and the restaurants and other clubs and facilities. Regarding foul water drainage, I can assure you that the park's drainage consultants have had discussions with both Anglian Water and the Environment Agency. Of course, these took place prior to the application submission in 21-22. At that point, Anglian Water confirmed there is capacity at the Kingscliff Water Recycling Centre, although at the same time we're also obviously very happy with the condition that's been put forward with the latest response. Again, the applicant is open to providing an on-site foul drainage solution. However, that's only policy compliant if a connection to the public sewer can't be achieved. They would have to apply under the Water Industry Act for a new connection application and obviously discharge any planning conditions. I trust you'll recognise that the applicant has worked hard to ensure Phase 2 will be as successful as Phase 1, and by granting plan permission, the park will continue to attract visitors to the area and contribute to the local economy without having any adverse impact on the sensitive environment.
Thank you very much.
Many
if you'd
thanks
just
for
like to
listening.
stay seated for a few minutes.
Sure.
Any questions of clarity, please? Dennis?
I'd just like to clarify a few things here. Are these cottages or whatever they are solely owned, or are they just holiday apartments?
They're holiday.
Just
They're for
holidays,
holidays.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a holiday.
They're owned by the park,
Owned
and
by the
people visit the. Yeah, they can rent them by the week or 2 weeks. Yeah.
Frank?
The previous speaker said that in his experience that there wasn't, prior to the promises by the park, that it would probably generate extra revenue for the surrounding businesses. And you touched on it in your speech that you do encourage people. How does that encouragement look?
Well, the managers, the management of the park, who are here today, they and the owners, they provide a welcome pack for the visitors, setting out all the various attractions and all the various, the facilities and services that are in the local area. Obviously, you can't make people go to the local pub, but in their experience from customer feedback, etc. People do stay on site, they self-cater. Obviously, it's a nice environment, but they do also go out and visit the local facilities. Hopefully that answers your question.
Any more questions? Paul?
Yeah, okay. So as you were saying, the Anglia Water scenario has been dealt with in the way of an agreement that that the pipe work will be in place before it goes on.
Yeah.
And as Councillor Fairhill said, Fairhill, I said Fairhill, said it's running along a track next to something which has a dog walking track.
It's an old railway line.
An old railway line. That was it, the old railway line. I take it the reinstatement of all that is going to be overseen by somebody to make sure that it's done correctly.
Well, as is very usual in circumstances like these across the country, the developer will need to make an application for a new connection to the foul water network to Anglian Water under the Water Industry Act 1991, I think it is.
Yeah.
I'm a planner, not a drainage engineer, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. And as part of that whole application process, the route of from the pumping station, which is shown on the site layout, to the new connection, the route of the pipe work, will all be included as part of that.
Okay. And so the other thing was, it is 100% holiday homes.
Correct.
Which is obviously why they don't use the local clubs, because they're only there a week or 2 weeks, and then they're off to the pub, a few beers, job done, barbecue. Yeah, okay. That was just, I wanted to clarify that. It's 100% holidays, and yeah.
Yeah, 100% holidays. I mean, there has been discussions back in 2021 with Anglian Water, 20 and 21, between the applicant's drainage consultants and Anglian Water, and the Environment Agency actually managed to get them all together. And a route has been discussed, but obviously that follows a planning permission. That's a different sort of part of the legislation.
Yeah. Fine.
Hope that helps.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I think that's about it.
Thank you, Paul. James?
Yes, I've just got a question on the biodiversity on the site. There is some net gain proposed, but I think some of it's off-site. I was just wondering if more could potentially be done on site.
Yes, there's overall, obviously, there's the land holding is, as is mentioned briefly, 250 hectares, with the application site approximately 9. I think it's outlined in blue on the site location plan. So within the site itself, I think it was felt with discussions with the ecologist and a site meeting that took place a couple of months ago. For example, we removed the green roof from the facilities building, specifically at the request of the council's ecologist, which obviously would have provided some enhancement on site, but it was felt that there were other areas of the wider land holding which would be better used for enhancement than on the site itself. Just depends where the blue line and the red line falls effectively.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we noticed the green roof had disappeared, so it's good to get an understanding of why that has occurred. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, James. Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pete, would you like to come back on e-points?
No, I don't think so. I think that was covered well by the applicant there.
Okay, thank you very much. So, for the purpose of debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution meeting procedures rules 19.2 and 19.21, I will move the recommendation at item 10, page 62 of this report, that planning permission be granted subject to conditions listed at section 11 of the report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much. And members, would you like to debate?
Sorry, Chair, can I just clarify, with the addition of condition 25 for the Anglian Water, the foul water strategy. Sorry to be pedantic.
Thank you very much, Alex. Okay, with that extra point. Councillor?
Thank you, Chair, and it's nice to be back among you. I too had some quite serious concerns as I think many of us did, on the Anglian water issue and the foul water sewerage up to Kingscliff. I am considerably reassured, both by what the speakers have been saying and, of course, what it says with the condition 25 on this. The current site already exists. It's 50 units, and they are supported. The principle of development's established here. Question is, to expand it by 64 additional units plus the facilities block, will it overwhelm the area? In honesty, I don't see that it would. People come, as the lady pointed out, people come for rest and relaxation. And I understand, and I agree with Councillor Brooks' remark a few moments ago, that it would be unusual for people on a week or a fortnight's break in the country to take too much active participation in organised sports, because you haven't really got time to join the cricket club, rugby club, whatever. But nevertheless, I am fairly persuaded that visitors to the site will make use of local facilities, pubs, clubs, well, pubs anyway, and generally the local countryside. And there's some lovely walks and off, non-motorised solutions out there. So, in balance, I mean, I understand the concerns. I mean, any development will, and as I think we've discussed earlier, generate considerable